존재감을 잃지 않는다. 내가 가진 힘은 절대 밀리지 않는 자신감이 되고 거친 길을 이기는 부드러움이 된다. 지금껏 달려온 길은
Good morning, everybody. That was so weak. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Awesome. Great to see everybody this morning. Let me just, we're going to get started here in about 1 minute, and I just wanted to start the day by welcoming, and he's going to give a small introduction here, our high school principal at SFS, Mr. Jeff Holcomb. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. What an applause. You guys are awesome. I will be in the audience clapping for you. I'll return the favor. How's that? Welcome to SFS. I hope you guys all got in. Let me see your hand if you're tired. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Honest group. I love that. Let me see your hand if you got a bed and some good food last night. Like that? Okay. Excellent. Well, there's probably a written welcome from me somewhere, but you probably won't have time to read it. Thank you for coming. We're really excited to have you all here and looking at the program. I think you guys are in for a treat over these next few days. So thanks for coming. I know our community is really excited to see what you guys do on stage, and I think it's a really special APAC. Not just a sports APAC where people are competing against each other, but it's great to see you guys come and collaborate together. So we're excited to have you here. One of our traditions at SFS is to open these things in prayer. So I just want to invite you to join me in an opening prayer. If you're not a praying person, take a moment to meditate and be grateful, and then we're going to kick off our conference. So. God, thank you for today. Thank you for the ability to be alive. Thank you that we have life and that we have breath in us. And I ask over these next few days that the life and breath in each one of these people here comes together and creates something new and something beautiful. I ask that you bless this time, the friendships that are formed, the hard work that is done, and the fun that is had with your presence. In your name, amen. Welcome, and I hope you guys have a great conference.
Everybody. Good morning. My name is Mrs. Moon, and I'm the drama director at Seoul Foreign School, and it's just so great to see you guys. And I hope everything went well last night. You'll see a lot of us around. We're here to help you and lead you in the right way if you get lost and all of those things. And hopefully this morning we'll make a lot of things clear for you. But before we do that, I really do want, if you are tired, this is another tradition, and I really do want to make sure that you wake up this morning before we have a performance to share with you. So I need everybody to stand up, if that's okay. Everyone stand up. And those of you who are from Korea, you guys know about this. So I need the people from Korea, our kids from Korea, or have lived in Korea, to lead the way on this. But behind our school, there's a beautiful mountain. It's one of the best things about having this school on the hill. And a lot of people hike up that mountain. And you know that in Korea, a lot of times in the early morning, people will hike up the mountain and they will release all their tensions. They will release all their tensions, all their fears, all their anxieties by going to the very top and just yelling at the top of their lungs, Yahoo! All right, so what we're going to do, so imagine yourself on the top of the mountain. You might have hit yourself against the trunk of a tree on your back. That also happens at the top of a mountain. But for sure, if you get up really, really early, you can hear the Yahoo! And they hold it as long as they can. And as they say the whole part, they release all the anxieties over to the city of Seoul. So then Seoul has to deal with it and not them. So you guys, we're going to try this on the count of 3, as loud as you can. Think about any anxieties, fears, concerns that you have, and I want you to just release. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Yahoo! Better? All right. Good. All right, you can have a seat again. And it is really my privilege to introduce some special people that have come to perform for us today. And what you're going to see today is a form of Korean theater, but it's like theatrical storytelling. And it's been in Korea for hundreds of years. It's one of my favorite forms, and it's called pansori. Can everybody try that? Pansori. And I actually feel like this is one of sort of the original forms of rap, because you'll notice that there's one singer who does the singing and the storytelling, and you'll notice that there's an instrumentalist on the side, a drummer, who sort of supports them. So, you know, like when you see a rap singer, you have people on the side like, yeah, 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 all that stuff. So I always feel like this is like 300 years ago, the rap started in Korea, and then no, I don't know. But it just seems there are some parallels that I have seen. But anyway, it's called like a dramatical song, and it started in the Chosun dynasty for all you history buffs. And so we're going to greet a professor, at a university professor, and he's going to share with you a little bit as he goes. But we're going to greet Professor Lee, and then the performer Che Pora, and she will be doing the singing this morning. So I want you to give these folks a really big, warm round of applause as they come and share their art form with us.
Hi, nice to meet you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Lee Dok-in. I'm a singer, Hanoi singer. Before the performance, I'll let you know the trinity. Okay. Okay. Tighten your abdomen. Okay. Together. Okay. Let's shouting together. 얼씨구! Oh, more louder. 얼씨구! 좋다! 잘한다! You know what this means? 잘한다? It's a good job. Good job. 잘한다! Okay, in English, good job! Okay, once more. 얼씨구! 좋다! Okay, please shouting together in the middle of the performance, please. Okay? Sure. Okay, I'll introduce you the singer. She is a very famous singer. She's a young singer. She name is Chebora. As she told you. Okay, today she will sing a song, 사랑가. Okay, do you know 사랑? Yes. Do you know 사랑? 사랑. 사랑 means love. It's a love. 사랑가 means song. It's a love song. Love song is one part of the 춘향가, the 판소리 춘향가. Okay, let's give your hands to singer 최보라, please.
그때요 도련님과 춘향이가 사랑가로 업고 노는 이리 오너라 업고 놀자 이리 오너라 업고 놀자 사랑 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 내 사랑이야 사랑 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 내 사랑이야 내 사랑이로다 매도 내 사랑아 울병 사탕 해화당을 주랴 지금 돌돌 개살고 작은 이도령서는 이뻐으라느냐 저리 가거라 뒤태를 보자 이리 온노라 앞태를 보자 아짱아짱 걸어라 걷는 태를 보자 엉크두서라 예수를 보자 내도 내 사랑아 예 춘향아 나도 너를 업었으니 너도 날 좀 업어다
얼씨구.
도련님은 내가 가벼워서 업었지만 나는 도련님이 무거워서 어찌 없는단 말씀이오 내가 널 다려 무겁게 업어달라더냐 내 양팔을 네 어깨 위에 얹고 징검징검 걸어다니면 그 안에 또 좋은 속이 있느니라 춘향이가 도련님을 업고 노는 뒤 이제 아주 파급이 되어 도련님을 낭군짜로 업고 노는 둥둥둥 내 낭군 둥둥 내 낭군 둥둥 내 낭군 도련님을 업고 보니 줄 혼자가 절로 나무용 작약을 보란하 다 봉접 일줄 싣고 선사 봉접 700리 세그 부와 돗줄 호루구나 둥둥 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 내 낭군
If you guys want a translation of that, you can ask all the kids from SFS. Right, guys? And they'll give you no, never mind. Okay. But anyway, let's give them another big round of applause. I just wanted to say that keeping art forms alive it's very difficult. And to have someone as young as our performer keeping this ancient art form alive is so important in Korea. So it's so exciting to see that happening. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Striffler, John Striffler, who's our Director of Performing Arts. Let's give him a big hand.
Good morning again. I just have a couple of things before Ms. Moon comes back up to speak. Just a couple of logistics things for the students. You guys are going to be in 3 different spaces today. Just do me a favor. If you can bring water into the spaces, but don't bring food or sodas or any of that stuff into the or coffees. Just have water in the theaters. If you have your bags and stuff, you can bring your bags into the theaters as well. That's okay. For the people who are going to be in here with Eduardo, please do not go off stage into the scene shop. There's just a lot going on in there. We don't want anyone getting hurt in there, so just don't go into the scene shop. And if there's anything you need throughout the day, obviously your directors, coaches will be around, I'll be around, Ms. Moon will be around. Please ask us for anything you need. And that's really just anything you need, just please ask us. And I'm going to bring Ms. Moon back up, I think, next to talk about the artists and all those people. So thank you, and I hope it's an awesome festival. Thank you.
I don't really like standing behind the podium, and I think everybody can hear me, right? Okay, so I wanted to introduce some really special people to you and kind of give you a little bit of a background for today, especially in terms of our schedule, so you know where we're headed for the rest of the day. But a long time ago, maybe a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, I read an article that was written by a woman named Tiffany Antone. And I don't know if you guys have heard of HowlRound Commons or HowlRound. It comes out of Emerson University, and they are constantly writing things about theater and theater in the world, and they're sharing with us what's happening around the world and in different communities. And so I found it to be an amazing source for myself and for my students. But Tiffany Antone wrote an article about radical empathy. And I had been thinking about and committed to the idea of empathy since I was in college. I took an empathy course in college. And so that had been a part of my life for as long as I could remember. But I loved the idea of radical empathy. And I don't know if it was her idea, but what it made me think of and why I wanted to use this as a theme was because empathy, I think, is our responsibility as performers and as artists. And radical empathy is an act of reaching out, or it can be. And it's an act of reaching out with an open mind and heart, and it means creating connections. And I'm really hoping that this weekend, this will be part of your experience. I've seen that at APAC so many times. It's how we as artists can foster communication, connection, no matter what community we might be in. And Tiffany Antone said, radical empathy is how healing truly will begin. And so I love that idea that through the process of radical empathy, and of course it has to be radical, because making yourself vulnerable, you have to be radical. Caring about someone who you disagree with, you have to be radical. All of those things take us to another level, and they push us. So that's why I think those two words actually go together very well. So hopefully through this weekend, we can explore what that means, and each of you can have your own definition by the end of what radical empathy can be. And so that being said, I hope you guys get a chance to look outside. We've some of the girls who are helping us this weekend helped us make a display of sort of the idea behind our design that you see behind here and that you see on your t-shirts. One of our teachers, one of our art teachers, Harrison Creech, did the design, but he didn't just want to throw a design at us. He actually wanted you to see the process of where he started and where he ended, and all of the ideas that went into that process. It's on the website, but if you haven't had a chance to see it, you can see it in the lobby as well. And you can see a lot of the thought and the heart that went into what he was creating when he was thinking about the idea of radical empathy, but also walking in the shoes of another and what that might mean, so that we're not always focused on ourselves, but we're focused on others. And so I hope you get a chance to take a look at that. And also in the spirit of this theme, we invited 3 special people to come, and I want you to just greet each one of them, and then you're going to hear from Jennifer Hartley, who's going to share with us some of her experience and some of her work and give us a little bit more context. But first of all, I do want to introduce Dr. Jennifer Hartley, and it's in the program that we've shared with you guys, but I do want to say that she is a director, a writer, a humanitarian, and a practitioner, but she's also very much an important part of her life is to human rights activism and working for human rights around the world. And so one of the many areas that she's explored is Augusto Boal's Theater of the Oppressed. And she's worked with Augusto Boal and the folks there for many years. And so those of you that will be working closely with her will experience that as well. So let's give a big round of applause to Jennifer Hartley. And then I'd like to introduce Eduardo Castro Neves. He's coming to us from Germany via many countries, originally Brazil. And some of the students here had a chance to meet him last year, at the beginning of last year. Eduardo is a dancer and a physical performer, but he's also extensively trained in playback theater, which he'll be sharing with some of you through this weekend. He has a heart for people and a heart for connection, and I've seen this many times, and so I think you'll experience that too right away. But let's give him a big round of applause. And then I want to introduce you to George Dornbach. George is living in Japan right now with a Japanese family in a village somewhere in a place that I did not recognize. But he can maybe tell you more about that. But his passion is the arts, of course, and he's not only a musician and an actor, but he's a filmmaker and a writer, and he has been focused during his time in university and beyond on storytelling and how to collect the stories, how to tell stories, how to create stories. And so I'm really excited that he can be here this weekend. So let's give a big round of applause to George. And you guys, those of you who know me know I'm pretty bad at time. So I'm just checking my watch because I don't want to mess this up. But what we're going to do before we have an introduction from Jennifer is we are going to take our group pictures, our group photos. So I'm going to turn that over. I think, Mr. Black, are you going to help us with this, or is someone coming down? Everybody, okay, great. Can everybody say hi to Mr. Black? He's up in the booth, way up there, like way above our heads. He's our technical director at the school. And, oh, Unjung, I wanted you, you'll see, everybody say hi to Unjung. Hi, Miss Shin. She is she's one of our designers, and she's a wonderful person. She can carry more set at one time than anyone I know. For a very small person, by the way. Anyway, she's wonderful. So you'll see her around as well. What we will do, maybe Mr. Striffler, do you want to call the groups up one group at a time for the pictures? Is that the best thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does everyone need like a minute or two to get sorted out? All right, so can we start with, guys, can we start with, in about 5 minutes, can we start with Canadian Academy on stage? And I'm just going to go through group by group.
Yes, yes, we have.
Yeah.
You guys have the creative team. All of yours will be on
SAS, can you guys be on deck? SAS? Can you guys be on deck up here? Yeah, in the back.
Here. Alexia, when you get a chance, can you see Miss Harvey? But I asked her to ask you guys some things.
All right, SAS, you guys are up. SFS, can you guys be on deck next after them? Maya. All right, SFS. Okay, WAB, can you guys get on deck, please, to go next?
Yes. We are trained in acrobats theory.
Okay, HKIS, you guys are on deck up here. HKIS. Okay, next group. UNIS, Eunice, you guys are on deck after this.
Guys, we believe we achieved. Not even offended. She must be
Oh, did I get one?
No, they didn't get one last time.
Okay, I can get one for you. Okay, I'll get you one. It might just be up in the box and take it out. Yeah. Yeah. make one announcement while these last groups are taking pictures. Can I just get your attention for 1 second? If any adult or student has not filled one of these slips out for lunch for Saturday, I need that to happen now. So if you can come see me, if you have not filled out a slip for lunch for Saturday, please come do so. Can I get everyone on stage for a group picture? Artists, everybody, can I get everyone on stage? Guys, don't leave us, we're going to stay for a group picture. Everybody, guest artists, everybody should be coming up on stage, please. All right, guys, let's fill it on the risers. Go up on the risers, go up on top, just go in like on the risers. Don't move because I want to take a picture. Don't move, don't move.
John,
Yeah.
where'd you fit it into?
Photoshop.
Okay, don't leave the stage. Don't leave the stage because I think we're going to start. We're going to start. Edie, you want them to stay on stage? supervisors just sit in a big circle on stage? Yeah, just. Students, let's circle up, sit down on stage, sit on the floor. On stage, sitting down in a circle. Anywhere, okay.
Everybody, you don't need to be in a circle yet. Just fill it in, and sit down. Thank you, guys. Yeah, great. Not yet. There's a huge weird gap here. So guys, before I turn it over to Jennifer, one thing I wanted to say, Jennifer, like a few days ago, had completely lost her voice. And so today she's got her voice, but it might not be as loud as she would want it to be. So we're going to be really understanding of her through this. But I wanted to let you guys know, some people were asking what the story was that you heard the Pansori singer sing. And her actual singing was taken from a Korean Romeo and Juliet. So there's a Korean version of that. There's a boy from a rich royal family and a girl whose mother is sort of like, you've heard of geishas or kisongs in Korea. And so they came from two different sides of the track, and they fall in love at this festival, and they secretly get engaged without the permission of their parents. But the father finds out that his son has been involved with this girl, so he sends the son off, and he has to go take this huge exam in Seoul, and he has to go and study for this test. Meanwhile, there's this magistrate who wants to marry this girl, and because she doesn't have any say, she's going to be forced into it, but she doesn't want to do it, so she goes to jail, because she still loves that guy. Well, the guy comes back a long time later while she's in jail, dressed as a beggar, and meanwhile, he's made one of the highest scores on the test, so he's become a secret royal inspector. And he starts inspecting this magistrate and finding out that he's done all of this wrong. And in the end, he brings this guy down, and he gets the love of his life out of jail, and they're able to be together. So that's a lot for that one song. She did not sing that whole story. She actually just took a part of it, which was a night that they shared together, but not that kind of night at this point. But it was more just, a night we shared together. And they're sort of, she sang both roles, the role of the man and the role of the woman. And they're saying, oh, the guy says, what do you need? I'll give you anything. Do you want some fruit? Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And then it turns over to the girl, and she's saying all the things that she would give him. And there's one expression that Eunjung was telling me about that she really likes from this story. And it says, I want you to walk to me because I want to see you. I want you to walk away from me because I want to see you. Because whether you walk towards me or walk away from me, you're beautiful in both directions. Aww. Right? Okay. And some of you know the expression, I will carry you oboba. Oboba means when you carry a baby on your back. That's in Korean. And so the idea is that I will carry you if you want me to carry you. So, well, they found love at a festival, guys, so anything could happen this weekend. You know what I'm saying? All right. Anyway, thank you, Eunjung. We appreciate the translation. You just never know. You just never know. All right. It's happened before, guys. It's happened before. Anyway, I will now turn it over to Jennifer Hartley, and she's going to share a little bit of her experiences with you, and then we'll go from there. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Ms. Hartley.
Hi everyone. So I am kind of losing my voice still a little bit, and I probably have a really weird accent for all of you. So around me. Before I start talking about Applied Theatre, I'm actually going to ask you all to stand up, please. And I want you just to think about yesterday when you all arrived here, or some of you I know are from this school, but just think about yesterday for a minute. And I want you to think about what was the most challenging or difficult thing you had to do yesterday. So something that you experienced, what was the most difficult or challenging thing? And second, I want you to think, what was your best moment from yesterday? So don't think about like saying, oh, the whole day was great. I'm asking you for moments, a challenging moment and a best moment. And what I'm going to ask you to do is, in a minute, you're going to find someone you don't know, introduce yourself, so someone who's not from your school, someone you're not staying with, introduce yourselves and tell each other what was your challenging moment and what was your best moment from yesterday. When I shout change, you have to find another person you don't know and do the same. And I'm going to be saying change really quickly, so you have to speak fast. So it makes it a little bit less awkward talking to people you don't know. So look around. Go. Change. Get to your partner. Change. 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 Okay, everyone, stop. Stop. And sit down, please. Anyone wonder, or can you tell me why you think I asked you to do that exercise and then just walked around? Anyone?
So we get to know people.
Yep. What other reasons? Yeah.
A lot of us kind of have the same or similar like festivals as well. That seems like
Yeah. Anything else?
Build trust.
Yep. What about the fact that I just walked around? I didn't talk to any of you. I didn't share my moments. I just watched you. Why do you think I did that? I'm lazy? Because I have no voice? I did it because one of the things you're going to learn about applied theatre is it's also about observing people and observing them very quickly, often in very serious situations, and being able to work with and learn things about them just by looking at them. And so a big part of applied theatre looks at body language and how we read body language, and the fact that our bodies tell our story all the time. Your body doesn't know how to keep a secret. It talks about you all the time. It tells your story all the time. And that's one of the keys to understanding applied theatre. So, to give you a little bit of background, because I always think two things happen with what I do. First of all, people used to think, they'd say, oh, you do theatre, oh, you're an actor. And it was as if it was something really dismissive and unimportant. Or now they say to me, theatre of the oppressed, applied theatre, that sounds really boring. And it kind of does. It's not the best title in the world. What people don't realise, theatre of the oppressed has a huge section which is just about playing games. And it's all about the theory of why we play games and why they're so important. But to give you a bit of background on me, basically, I don't know where to start with that one. Let's just say I found myself a good few years ago, because I'm not as young as I look. Don't laugh at that. A few years ago in South America, directing British musicals that had been translated into Spanish, huge musicals, things like Evita and Joseph and Technicolor Dreamcoat, and it was for Andrew Lloyd Webber's company. And I was doing that in Spanish, but I also, at that time, had studied to be a psychologist as well, and I studied specifically working with trauma. So I used to volunteer my time and try and help people who, in South America, who had suffered under the dictatorships that had happened in the years before and who had been tortured or political prisoners. And I did this for quite a long time, until two things happened. First thing was that I met Augusto Boal, and he said to me, why do you think those two sides of your life are separate and different? And it had never occurred to me that my work in theatre and my work as a psychologist were in any way linked. I saw them as two totally different things. And with him, I started to learn that they weren't separate at all. I also, and I'm really sorry if you love musicals, don't take it personally, but I had grown to hate musicals at this point because it was every day of my life, basically, hearing the same musicals, going through the same thing. But the second thing that happened was that one of the people I had been doing therapy work with, he hadn't spoken ever about what had happened to him when he had been tortured and been a prisoner. For 13 years he'd been kept as a political prisoner. And he started to talk for the first time, and he told me his story. And his story was more horrific than anything I could have imagined. And I remember going home that night and I thought, I have to make a decision right now. I can sympathise with what happened to him and get on with my life. I can be apathetic and ignore this and forget it. Or I take what he told me and I do something with it. And I remember sitting there thinking, how can I ever go back to a normal life after what this man shared with me? How can I ever pretend that that doesn't happen in the world, that that kind of evil doesn't happen? And what can I do to change it? And the more I thought about it, the more I realised I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror again if I carried on with my life like I'd never heard that story. And that began what then became a lifetime of listening to stories through Theatre of the Press and Applied Theatre. Now, Oslo Boal taught many things, but two of the things that he taught was, one, the stage is a powerful place, and you have the ability to influence people when you're on the stage, and you should never take that lightly. And he learned that in a very difficult way, because when he first started doing theatre, he would travel around the countryside doing some sort of theatre about what was happening in the country at the time. And one of the pieces of theatre that he did was saying to all the people who lived in the countryside that they should take up their guns and fight for the land, that the land belonged to them, not to the rich people. And one of the performances he did of this, that night, they were all back where they were staying, and they heard a knock on the door, and when they opened the door, all the villagers and the campesinos, people from the countryside, were standing outside with their guns, and they said, "You're right, we should go and fight for our land, let's go." And Boal was horrified, and he said, "Yes, go, on you go." And they said, "Well, you told us, you stood on stage, you did this play about how we should do this, we think you're right, let's go and fight." And Boal said, "Yes, I think you should go and fight, but we're just actors, and our guns are made of wood." And they said, "Well, we'll give you guns." And he said, "Well, you don't understand, we're just actors." And one of the men said to him, "I do understand. You stood on the stage and you told us to go and risk our lives, to risk our families' lives, to risk losing everything that we have, but you're too scared to do it yourself." And he said from that moment on, he realised he had no right to stand on the stage and use it to influence people to do things he wouldn't do himself. That was one of the things. Now, the other thing that he realised was through that walking in people's shoes was an important way to understand and empathise with people. And a lot of his theatre was designed around that whole idea. And he started to teach his actors in a way where he told them, what right do you have to stand on stage and be someone else if you don't know who you are? How can you truly take on the role of someone else if you haven't taken the time to understand who are you? And so everything in his theatre is about trying to understand ourselves and the world that we live in. Now, Theatre of the Press is part of what's called applied theatre. And applied theatre is about using theatre methods and non-theatre methods to help people come to terms with and talk about and understand their stories. Now, that doesn't mean they have to have something terrible that's happened to them. We all have a story. And applied theatre says all of us have a story and all of us have the right to be heard. But telling your story doesn't necessarily mean speaking. And what applied theatre does is it tries to help people find their story and tell that story in whatever way makes sense to them. So under applied theatre, you have theatre of the press, you have drama therapy, psychodrama, playback theatre, museum theatre, prison theatre, the list goes on. Many, many kinds of theatre that you might never come into contact with. But the idea behind applied theatre is to use it to help people. It doesn't mean we don't have performances. It doesn't mean we don't write scripts and have all the normal theatre stuff. It means that every script we write is written with the people whose stories they are. We write their stories with them, and very often we have them perform in their own stories. So applied theatre performances are often made up of actors and non-actors, which is a very important part of what Theatre of the Oppressed is about also. So I want to read you a quote. I wrote a few books, but I, in particular, wrote a book about applied theatre a few years ago, and it was mainly because I was really frustrated with the fact that people didn't seem to understand what it was, and because the books that were out there were very serious academic books and kind of boring, basically, I thought. Well, some of them. And I wanted to prove that it wasn't boring, it didn't need to be boring, and that if applied theatre is about storytelling, I was going to tell my story in it. And I wrote a particular paragraph, which I thought was quite funny at the time, until my parents read it and they didn't think so. But I'll just read this to you. Over the last few years, I have been spat on and punched. I've had my life threatened at knife point, gun point, and by machete-wielding bandits. I've been scratched by a rabid bat, chased by packs of rats, and bitten by tarantulas. I've been cursed by witch doctors and had spells cast upon me which I went to unbelievable lengths to have removed. I've been caught in civil conflict more than once, arrested more than once, and was even implicated in a conspiracy that resulted in the fatal shooting of a vice president. The world of applied theatre does not require any or all of the above, as a form of initiation or as a working practice, but it has been my life. And that was kind of the point. I kind of thought that was normal. So when my parents read it, my mum said to me, "We always wondered what you did, and now we don't want to know anymore." The thing is, I made a decision to do applied theatre, but to do applied theatre with the groups that many others wouldn't work with. Because applied theatre asks you to walk in other people's shoes, so it asks you to also try and work with judgment and not having judgment. It asks you to look at everybody's perspective, not come at it as right and wrong. It has a rule where it says condemn the act, not the person. So in terms of what I do, I've worked with torture victims in countries all over South America, but I've also worked with the people who tortured them. I do condemn what they did, but I will not condemn the people who did it, because everybody has their story, and we have to listen to that story. In applied theatre, I've travelled to war zones, and I've worked with people dealing with loss and trauma because of war and things that have happened, natural disasters. I've worked in refugee camps in Africa and in the Middle East. I've also worked in prisons with people ranging from political prisoners to rapists, paedophiles, murderers. And I've worked in prisons in the UK, in the States, in Africa and in South America. And I can assure you that having worked in all of those, if I have to be in prison, I'm choosing UK every time. But the thing is, I've worked with every kind of group you can imagine. Homeless people, drug addicts, alcoholics, people who have been sexually abused, physically abused. Applied theatre has no limits. It looks at them all and it says, how can we help you find your story? Because the problem with what's happened to a lot of these people is they think that defines them. And they think that's all they are, is what happened to them. So they are the torture victim, or they are the drug addict. And in applied theatre, what we're saying is, no, that's only part of your story. It is not who you are. And help us help you find that story. And it's a big challenge. All of that is a very big challenge, and it's not easy work. And with the organisation I work with, we always have to look at the situations we go into because, as I said, we chose to work with a lot of the groups other people didn't want to. So we've been in situations where we could get into trouble. I've been thrown out of a few countries. In particular, I've been thrown out of Zimbabwe more times than I've ever been thrown out of all the other countries added up together. But I kept going back. I've been put in jail for doing this. I got accused of being involved in a plot to kill a vice president, which I'm quite proud of because that's quite a claim to fame. I was innocent, by the way, in case anyone's wondering or worried about it. But the point is that we always have to weigh up what we're doing. We have to look at why we're doing it. And it's a question we always ask ourselves, to think about the people that we work with, to think about why we do the things that we do. And in the midst of that, our love for theatre is a big part of it, because theatre gives a voice to people who often will never have a voice otherwise. I recently did a project with people who were all homeless. They had been living on the streets, and they're what's called dual diagnosis. So as a result of trauma, they all had mental health issues, and they all had an addiction to alcohol or drugs. We did a project for 6 months. I can't tell you how difficult that was, because one of the rules we make is, as long as they don't use drugs or drink alcohol in our sessions, I don't care if they turned up and they're under the influence. Because if I set them a standard of, you can't be under the influence, they're never going to make it. It's about letting people be who they are for the moment to find out who they might be able to become. And when we did this, I said to them at the start of the project, you'll be able to do a big theatre presentation if you want. And every one of them said, no, not a chance. And in very colourful language told me what I could do with that idea. At the end of last year, every one of them performed their stories in a major theatre production, huge theatre production in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And these were people who had never spoken out before and never told their stories. One of the things that they kept saying was, I'd never told my story because I thought it was my fault. And suddenly I realised it's not. And I don't need to be ashamed, and I don't need to hide because of things that have happened to me or bad decisions that I made because of those things. So going back into the whole idea of this conference, this festival, what we're trying to say is that stories teach us empathy because they allow us to be in other people's shoes for a time. Whether you're listening to the story, sharing the story, however, we're all walking in each other's shoes for that time. And change begins with understanding. And understanding begins by identifying ourselves with other people. That's empathy. We have to learn to understand. And the world we live in today, that understanding is becoming less and less and less. However, before you can walk in another person's shoes, you have to first remove your own. And that's what we're going to be doing over the next couple of days. You cannot walk in someone else's shoes unless you're prepared to remove your own. That means taking away your judgment, your preconceived ideas, all of those things, and just listening, sharing, and being willing and open to be with other people, leaving your judgment at the door. And I know that's not easy. As I told you, I've worked with all sorts of people, and I remember in one case when I was working in prisons, and we were all having a great time with the workshop, and suddenly it went through my head what these people had done, very specifically what they had done. And I thought, oh my God, like, I can't do this, I can't work with these people. And then it left again, because what I had thought about was what they did, not who they are. Would you like to be defined by things that you've done or mistakes that you've made? Would you like that everyone sees you only through the lens of that one thing that you've done? Because if that happened to me, I'd be in trouble. So, on that note, can I just say that this is about community. Empathy is about creating community. And right now, in places like States, Trump, in the UK, all of that, it's about destroying community. It's about telling us how different we are from everyone else. What we're doing is realising how much we all have in common. And we do that by sharing our shoes. So we'll be sharing our shoes for the next 3 days, and I hope you don't have really smelly feet. Can you stand up, please? Can you get a partner, someone you do not know, not from your school, and stand with your partner away from other people? Has everybody got a partner? Guys, this is the easy part. Okay, can you stand facing your partner? And could I have, has anybody not got a partner? Well, I'm sure people can help you mix up to not be from the same school. Thank you. Who still doesn't have a partner? Anyone? Okay, I mentioned at the start about reading body language. One of the other things I do, and it is part of Theatre of the Oppressed, is I specialise in reading body language and helping people know their stories through their body language. It's also a way of reading people and reading a room very quickly. I asked you why you thought I was walking around. Well, I was reading you and your stories. And you can tell a lot by just how you decided to choose partners or not choose partners. In that exercise in the beginning, some people never changed partner. They pretended they did, moved around a little bit. Some of you all stuck together. Some of you went right out there, introduced yourself while other people pulled back and waited for others to approach them. Everything you do tells a story. And I told you Theatre of the Oppressed is about games, a lot of it. And sometimes we spend hours and hours just playing games. Even going into prisons and things, we play games. And obviously we're careful what games we play in certain situations. But the thing is that the reason we play games is because in the first 10 minutes, which might be really important for us knowing the group, we spend that time reading the group. Because, as I told you, we work with some dangerous groups. We need to know who are these people in front of us, what are our risks, what are the problems that might happen, who doesn't like who doesn't get on with whoever. All of those things people will show in the first 10 minutes. And your body starts telling your story. How you stand, how you fold your arms, how you tilt your head. Everything that every one of you is doing is telling a story. And you might think, I'm just standing. Or you might think, I'm going to stand really still so she can't read me. The minute you relax, your body starts talking even louder and louder. So, we're going to do a quick little game. I need a volunteer. Don't all rush me. Yes. Yes. Stand here. Now, I'm sure you've all played games in theatre before, and whatever games the people who are working with me, you may have played them before. What you'll come to understand is that they have a double meaning in Theatre of the Oppressed. So everything that we ask you to do is supposed to reflect aspects of life and get you to understand a point about life. So I'm not going to go into that just now, but we are going to play a quick game, which you may have played before. I just need to check. Can you count to 3?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
You didn't seem too sure. I was just checking. Okay, you're going to stand facing your partner, and we'll do it first just so you can see. The first stage, really easy. We're going to count to 3, one number at a time. So if I'm 1, you're 2, 3, 1 again. But you're going to try and count as fast as possible, and you have to keep your hands to your sides. So we'll do it for a second just to show you. 1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3,
1,
2,
3.
1.
Okay, not as easy as you might think. That's all I want you to do for the first part. So with your partner, hands at your side, count to 3. Okay, stop. Okay. I'm going to do this without the microphone because it's too hard to show you otherwise. So, face me again. What you're going to do now is stop saying number 1. And you have to replace number 1 with the sound and action. 2 and 3, you have to keep your hands to your side. So whatever I do for number 1, when it gets to your turn to do number 1, you have to copy whatever I did. Okay? But we still say 2 and 3 with our hands to the side, okay?
Janice, one person is alone now, right?
No.
No,
there
I was
were-
in a group of
All
3.
yours three. Okay.
You ready? Woo!
2,
3. Woo! 2.
3,
Woo!
2,
3. Woo! 2.
3,
Woo!
2.
3. Woo! Okay. You're going, don't do the same as us, but also think carefully. Don't do something that you might regret afterwards. Try and speed it up a little bit. And remember to keep your hands at your sides. Go. Okay, I can't shout stop, so you're going to need to help me. If we go back, can you remember what I did for 1? Okay, I'm going to do that again, and I want you to think of something for number 2. Be careful. You ready? Woo.
Hey!
3. Woo. Hey. Woo.
Hey!
3.
Woo!
Hey.
3.
I'm getting confused now. Okay, go. Fast. third one, only this time you have to really speed it up. You ready?
Up.
Up. Woo.
Up. Woo.
Up. Woo.
Up. Woo.
Perfect. Okay, go. As fast as you can. Faster. Speed it up faster. Okay, stop. Very last part of the exercise is you're going to go back to just counting to 3 with your hands at your side. Because after doing all of that, you should be amazingly super fast at it. Go. Okay, stop. Could you all just stand in a space of your own? And close your eyes. Yeah. So keep your eyes closed. Obviously, if you're looking at me, your eyes are open. And I want you to think about the next few days and how you're feeling about it. Some of you might be feeling excited, some people might be nervous, it's scary mixing up groups, things like that. Some of you might be missing your families. Just think about the next few days. And if you could sum it up in one word, what you're feeling, think, what is that word? And when you have your word, still with your eyes closed, I want you to move your body into a position that represents that word. So you're sculpting your own body into a position that represents that word, but keep your eyes closed. When you've got whatever you're doing, just freeze and hold it, whatever position you've got yourself into. I want you to stay frozen but open your eyes. Try and see around without losing your position. So looking around, I want you to remember, some people have more confidence than others. Some people are shy and they find it difficult to be in groups at the start. Some people aren't sure about this whole thing and what they're doing here and was it such a good idea? Other people are raring to go. Just look around and understand that we all feel differently and respect that in your groups. Thank you. Relax.
All All right, thank you guys, and thank you so much, Jennifer. What we're going to do now is, you guys can have a seat just for a second, and we'll try to organize how we'll run the rest of the day, or this morning part of the day. What I was going to say, just in terms of organization for the teachers, or for the coaches, I was wondering if it would be best, do the kids know exactly which group they're in? Okay, so what I was wondering is if you could go to your teachers and they will tell you, they will just verify the list of the groupings that you're in. And then and I just wanted to say that we're going to give each group a number in a sense. Miss Hartley's group will be number 1, and Eduardo's group will be number 2, and George's group will be number 3. And so what we want you to be able to do this morning is to rotate through so you can meet all the different artists and have at least one session with the different artists, and then you will end up with your group. That will be your 3rd session with your ensemble leader. And so you can just go for a couple minutes, meet with your teacher, find out what group it is, and then I'll just announce the rotation so you know. Did you have something you wanted to say related to that? Okay. And then I was going to tell you that after the first session, everybody, we're going to have a snack break, and we'll be right outside here. And, big shout out to our PTA for doing the snacks for this morning. But they've been really supportive, and they want you guys to have a great time. Then after the snack break, we'll have the second group, so you'll have your second rotation. And as far as locations, guys, we've tried to put signs up everywhere, but this space here will be where Eduardo's group will meet, his ensemble group. That over there, straight to there, is the black box, and the SFS kids, raise your hands, SFS kids, of course, they can help you